Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Eric Murphy.
I'm V. LaBianca.
This is Skeptic Generation.
And we need to talk.
Hey V, how's it going?
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, we hope that your holiday was great too, and whether you're celebrating or not, or you're just, needing to get away because everybody else is, spending time with family that may or may not understand that you don't believe, or whatever the case may be. We're just glad you're here with us. So thank you. Thank you for joining us. We're proud to be doing this, our final episode for season 1. V.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, it has been an adventure, and I'm really, really grateful.
Oh my gosh.
We started this show in May.
Mm-hmm.
It is December 26th, and we're over 11,000 subscribers.
Which is a lot farther along than I thought we were going to be when we got started.
Definitely. We've gotten a lot of really amazing support. All of you, thank you. Whether you've just watched, subscribed, hit the notification bell, everything you've done has helped. If you like the show, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. It really does help, share this stuff out. That way the algorithm will know, hey, people want to watch this, and it'll get out there. If you want to help further, or you just, want to get an ad-free version of this episode and prior episodes, if you want to get an ad-free version of the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/skepticgeneration. It helps. That's patreon.com/skepticgeneration. If you are feeling so inclined, you could also potentially send us a Christmas present. We have our tiny.cc/SG wish list, which is just a wish list of all the things that we want to do for the studio. Or if you can, buy us a coffee, the link is up there as well. Either way, we're glad you're here.
Yeah, we are where we are because you guys show up every week. So thank you.
Yeah. Any big announcements other than it being the last episode of season 1?
Well, there are probably going to be a couple of small changes to the show starting in season 2. We've got a week. I've got a week off after this. Mm-hmm. Eric, you mostly do as well. So we're going to be buckling down and maybe throwing in a few extra, things here and there.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. So definitely tune in next week because that's the kickoff for season 2.
See if you can spot the difference. Oh, yeah. Big thing.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to get SkepGen merch,
yes,
let's throw up the merch link.
Absolutely.
Our Redbubble link is in the description, and we're taking all of this merch off as of the beginning of January.
Yeah.
This is, and the conceit of this show is that those of you who've joined us this year, you are the class of 2021, the first class, the inaugural class for Skeptic Generation. Class of 2022 merch is going to go up next year, but it will be the last time you get the chance to get 2021 stuff. And we're not even buying extra stuff for ourselves. So yeah. Just an FYI. As always, we will be reading super chats at the very end of the episode. So if you have a burning question or a comment that you want us to read on air, feel free to do so. We would be happy to read that and thank you at the end of the episode.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
I think that's just about it. Let's jump into calls.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Let's talk to Scott in South Carolina.
All right.
Scott in South Carolina, you're live with Eric and V.
Hey, Eric and V, how are you?
Hey!
Doing good.
Really, really well. What did you want to talk about today?
Good. Merry Christmas, by the way.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Last couple of times we talked, I addressed the topic of evil, and I think we had some pretty good conversations about that. And
yeah, you and V talked a lot about evil, and I didn't really get to dive in and give you my perspective. I don't think so, at least. Did we?
Well, I think I got your 2 cents worth. So, but I wanted to approach another aspect of it,
okay.
Take another stab at it, because we alluded to it along the way. And that is the what we call the problem of pain and suffering. Mm-hmm. And let me begin by asking, I guess, you a question so that I'm clear on how you feel about this, at least in the beginning.
Sure.
And I think in talking with you previously, I got the impression, if you didn't say it straight out, that that you, if not equate, you relate evil with suffering in the world, and in people and in the world. So let me ask you straight, just that question: Do you consider suffering, which is a broad term, and we can whittle that down, but do you consider suffering to be a part of the problem of evil?
Yes, I do. And to be clear, when we're talking about evil and the problem of evil, it's difficult to pin things down, but in order to have this discussion, and just for people who are watching who may not understand the problem of evil is the idea that an all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful God, if they allow evil to happen in the world, then why don't they stop it? Mm-hmm. That is the problem. Well, how could evil exist? Like if you were standing in a room and watching someone be tortured and you could stop it and you didn't, mm-hmm. then you would either be impotent and lack the ability to stop it. You would be, you wouldn't care. And so maybe you wouldn't want to stop it, or maybe you're just not there. And all of those things are qualities that are attributed to a God.
That's correct, and I would say that those aren't the only three options, but I don't think that's our conversation for today.
Sure.
But because they can't be the only three options, at least from this side of the line. So when it comes to suffering in and of itself, even leaving God out of the equation for the moment, is that the short answer? Yes, suffering is evil, is a part of evil, a component of evil?
I mean, suffering is a component of it, yeah.
And then my question is, what do we mean by suffering? Do we mean pain? Is that what we mean?
Well, suffering's a kind of an interesting definition. V, how would you define suffering?
Yeah, it's a whole branch of philosophy we're diving into right here.
Yeah.
Honestly, the best explanation that I've heard is that suffering is the emotional response to pain. You can be in pain and not be suffering, right? Anybody in the BDSM community can tell you that. But the suffering component is the awareness of something being wrong and you not being able to change that, whether that's physical pain, whether that's, suffering as a result of grief from losing a loved one. So I would say that suffering is connected to pain sometimes, but I don't think they're synonymous.
The dictionary defines it as the state of undergoing pain, distress, or hardship.
Okay. Yeah, well, I don't think we're in disagreement there as far as that goes, as far as suffering goes. I read a book years and years ago that actually argued for pain being an actual gift to us, much like a fire alarm is a gift to us. Mother
Teresa definitely felt that way. So here's the question. Could you imagine a universe where an awareness of a hardship or pain or distress could be different, that it wouldn't be so bad? I mean, I think I gave the kids in the playpen example last time, didn't I?
I don't remember that example.
No. So the idea would be that if we were looking at this, and mind you, this, for people who are watching this, all of this has to do with a God that is creating a universe that has these properties. And so if I were to kind of compare that to putting children in a playpen, as long as they can choose what they want to do in there, they have some degree of free will. I can throw blocks in there. I can put in, finger paints and this and that. They get to choose what they want to do with those things. But would you throw in a handgun?
Oh, I do remember that example. I'm sorry. Yes.
No worries.
I remember that.
Would you throw in a bear trap? Would you throw in, poisonous animals? None of those things are required for free will, which gets rid of that whole free will argument against the problem of evil.
Yeah, and it's a good example as far as it goes. However, the second you have more than two children in that playpen, they don't need a gun and they don't need weapons They have fingers that can be poked into eyes, and I have 2 grandchildren who can vouch for that.
Yeah, but do you would you think, oh, there are more than 2 children in here? Okay, it doesn't matter. I can put a gun in now.
No, certainly not.
Why?
Well, for obvious reasons.
Yeah. So Well, the confusion here is that it seems obvious to you why you wouldn't give those children a gun, but the response that you gave just a minute ago was, well, once you have more than 2 kids in there, it doesn't really matter. But it kind of does, right? Like, I'm not saying they can't hurt each other.
Not that it doesn't matter if you put a gun in. Well, obviously, you're not going to give weapons to children.
Okay.
But I guess my point would be, and I guess the theist, the Christian, I can't just call myself a broad theist, because there's plenty in theism that I absolutely reject. So, but the Christian point of view would be the 2 children don't need a gun to hurt one another, is my point, and for the reasons that they would do so.
Well, while that's granted, that does not remove the point, right? That doesn't mitigate the point. The point is that a God could create a world where there is free will, where there is not the kind of suffering that we see. And if the God could do that and knew that they could do that and chose not to, I would say that's evil.
But the moment you create free will, if it's really free, you create the potential for evil and the potential for pain and suffering.
Okay, so
getting back specifically.
Well, I disagree with you. I disagree with you. Is there evil in heaven?
No, certainly not.
Is there free will in heaven?
There's a good question. I don't know what heaven's like. I can't answer for heaven, because it's beyond the realm of anything I've experienced or that we have information about. Well, so all I can do is speculate.
Well,
a good way to draw a potential comparison, granting that it is an unfalsifiable claim, what heaven is like, right, is to compare it to the rules that you have laid out, right? If this is how God's hands are kind of tied, if he must allow for free will in order to create a world that is good, and if that free will must therefore entail pain and suffering, then why would heaven be different than that? You've laid out the rules, and we're conceding that for the point for this point. Okay, granting all of that, what does that do to the concept of heaven?
Well, all we know about heaven, and I'm really trying to avoid referencing the Bible because I know you guys chafe at references from the Bible, so I'm trying not to do that. But it is my only point of reference in these kinds of discussions.
I mean,
my only point of it.
It makes sense. The talking about the Bible doesn't make us chafe. Referencing the Bible as an authority that we're supposed to cede things to for without good reason, that's where we chafe.
No, and I would never do that because I understand your position on this.
Yeah,
but I would reference it as the authority from which I argue, and knowing that you don't share that agreement with it being the authority. So I get that, and I wouldn't do that.
Right. Okay. So where in the Bible does it say that suffering and pain is a requisite for free will? Where does it say that God gave us free will?
In those words?
Yeah.
Nowhere that I'm aware of.
Okay. Where did you come up with these rules then?
But the implication throughout is clear. The implication is clear throughout with commands to behave this way and not that way. Commands to go this way but not that way.
Okay. So
they all imply free will, that we have a choice to go this way or that way.
Okay. So what are the implications about heaven? Is heaven a good place? Do we want to be there?
My understanding from the Bible is that heaven is an eternity free from the burden of our own self-interest, which we call sin.
So would you think that?
So it's sorry. Can I just wrap this up real fast?
Yeah, go ahead.
It sounds from the kind of inferences that you're drawing across the board, and it sounds like if you're being consistent across the board, then that's great. It sounds like the implication is that heaven does not entail free will. If we are free from sin, and sin is required in a world with free will, then it sounds like in heaven we don't have free will, based on inference.
Yeah, it kind
Yeah, see, there you've got me, because I don't know what heaven's going to be like. I do believe there will be free will, but I believe it'll be a whole different existence than what we're experiencing here, because here I am burdened with my own self-interest, and I have to continually fight against that.
Well, it seems like there's definitely a lot of fighting there, because in one circumstance, you know, just to kind of wrap up on the heaven, the point that I wanted to make is exactly what V was saying, is that, you know, the only way for that to be consistent is if you're lobotomized as an angel. And you...
Well, that's interesting, because even in what we would consider pre-human history in the heavens, God's own beings, call them angels for lack of a better word, rebelled. They had free will and they rebelled.
Okay, so evil...
We understand it.
Okay, so evil can exist in heaven.
The potential for it.
Okay, so then my point does not make sense, because the point that I was trying to make was that if you already believe that there's a place that can be, you know, without evil, where there is also free will, then that means that God could create and has created a place where there is free will and no evil. And so if God could do that in heaven and chose not to do that on earth, that's kind of a dick move. You know?
My question is, why do we even care about getting to heaven if there's no guarantee heaven is not just another earth where things are just going to spiral out of control again?
Yeah, no, I understand your perspective. I truly do. And those are fair questions. My hope is hanging on the fact that I will not have what we would call a sinful nature, that I'll be free of that. And that's what is inclined to this, what I would call this bent world. I hesitate to call it broken, but bent is a better word. But that we've sort of strayed from the idea of pain itself.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I mean, I love the way these conversations meander. I love that. But when it comes to pain itself, I wonder. I can't believe that pain itself is connected to evil as a component of evil. It is connected to evil as a result, as a consequence. But as an alarm, I mean, if I stub my toe on the bedpost in the dark, the reason it's painful is to alert me that something's wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Something's broken. Something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so look at any suffering in our world, no matter how unjust we might think it is, or how painful or how horrible, it alerts us to something being broken.
No.
And I guess point I would make.
Yeah, no, I entirely disagree with you. I entirely disagree with you. Yeah. So why can't a skinned knee be the worst that happens? Do you think a skinned knee can alert you to a problem? A stubbed pinky toe? That's fine. We're talking about genocide. Genocide is not a teaching tool. It's a vile, horrendous thing that you can try and find the silver lining, but if you're trying to use that silver lining to justify the drastic horrendousness of it, I think you've even lost the point entirely.
Oh, I agree. I wouldn't call it a teaching tool at all. I would just say that it does point to something being horribly wrong.
Right.
And that's the point to make. There's no teaching opportunity there except to say something's horribly wrong.
Well, yes, and I think that there's an equivocation happening here, where you burn your hand on a stove, right, and that hurts, and so you pull your hand away, right, maybe mitigating some pain, some damage, and that pain is a signal to your brain to get out of there, right, because there's something wrong, something's going to harm you, and I agree with that. That's basic biology. I think the concern here is that you're saying that all pain falls into that category of something is wrong and should be another way inherently, and because it is not that way, it is painful. And I think that is where we're having issues, because we can all agree that stubbing your toe and that signal to your brain that something is wrong, you need to look at it, is actually your brain telling you, oh, something is off, we need to fix it, let's go do that. But I'm curious why you think that kind of signal, something is wrong from how it should inherently be, is representative of all evil or all pain.
Well, I understand. I just think we're talking in terms of scale and degree now. I mean, where do we draw the line between acceptable pain and unacceptable pain, or helpful pain and unhelpful pain? Where's that line drawn?
Well, the line is not necessarily drawn in terms of acceptable and unacceptable here, although that's an interesting conversation to have for sure. What I'm saying is, the first example, we can give a biological reason for that reaction of pain, right? Your brain notices there's something wrong. Your nervous system sends a signal that gives you that feeling of pain that makes you go check to make sure your toe isn't broken, right? But that's all a self-contained biological thing that happens in brains. We know this to be the case. Saying that somehow that same process of a brain or a consciousness or something realizing that something is wrong and needs to be fixed can be attributed to other forms of pain, say a tsunami, right? Like it's not all the same thing. It's not all for the same reason. At least I have not been shown anything that makes me think that a tsunami is trying to tell me that something is wrong, so much as that's just, unfortunately, how things are. Tsunamis just happen. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Unless
I understand that.
Unless Scott thinks that weather events happen because of our behavior.
I don't know if I would. Scott, do you think that, I know we're talking primarily about human-caused pain and suffering, which is where we probably should be right now, but there is a lot of pain and a lot of suffering caused by natural events. Are those also signals that something is inherently wrong and used to signal that to humans? Is that kind of where your mindset is?
It is partially, if that's possible. Now I'm sounding like I'm equivocating, and maybe I am. When it comes to natural disasters, and again, I'll cite the Bible here, knowing it's not your authority. I get that, but the Bible's clear that all of creation was affected when sin entered the picture. How it was affected, I couldn't tell you the actual nuts and bolts of that. And in the New Testament, Paul talks about how creation groans for the, and that's poetically metaphoric. I get the language there, but what's interesting, and then you come to issues like global warming and how much of what we see in strange weather, or what we call unpleasant weather these days, was actually caused by human intervention.
I'm specifically thinking about, when a mega pastor says that God sent a tornado to go wipe out the sinful area where all the gays were because we allowed gay marriage. That kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to that kind of thinking. I'm sorry. I find that
don't ever be sorry for that.
But do you see why? But do you see why the line of thinking that you are presenting can very easily just take that small turn into that, and why we're having a little bit of trouble there?
Yeah, no, I get that. And
yeah,
I appreciate you making that clarification. No, I don't subscribe to that kind of thing. That God sends tsunamis and tornadoes and fires, and I do not subscribe to that, at least from a biblical standpoint. The Bible tells us that the rain falls on the just and the unjust, and that we are all part of the same world and are subject to the same, good and bad situations that arise in a natural sense.
Okay.
So no, I will never subscribe. I don't believe COVID is some sort of judgment from God on the population. I don't believe AIDS was a judgment upon the homosexual community. I do not.
That's good.
And I will never.
I appreciate that. That's
not
great.
my way of thinking at all.
But my question then is, if the rain falls on the evil and the good, and God is the author of good and evil, then what lesson are we supposed to be learning? If God is granting good things and bad things to both good and bad people, then how does that factor into any kind of lesson to be learned at all?
Well, the question implies that God authored evil as an equal and separate entity to good. And as far as I can tell, the definition of evil, biblically and even maybe in common sense, as far as I can tell, is the absence of good. For instance, and very brief example, when I was raising my daughter, I was sovereign over my household. You know, my word was the law. Well, I wasn't that kind of dad, but you get the point. And I gave my daughter within that household all manner of choices. And with the good choice came the implication that there's a bad choice with it. If she made a bad choice, let's call it evil for the sake of the example. Yes, I created evil by giving her the right choices she should make. If she continued with the right choices, she would benefit from.
So I see where you're going. I do want to just say Isaiah 45 verse 7 says, "I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things." So that's where I was getting that from. And I feel like
no problem with that.
It just feels a little dodgy to me.
Yeah, I think one of the first things that I would point out is lack of something being good is not evil. There are things that you can do that are neither good nor evil, just are what they are. You know, it's just like when you're. It's well, my first thought is like morality, right? There's moral and immoral, but there's also amoral, right? Can you think of anything that you can do that is not good nor bad, but just is? Maybe taking a nap. Maybe
eating breakfast, or deciding to skip breakfast,
or the route you took to work today, was it good or evil? Because with the example that you gave, it has to be one of them. But I would argue that the route you took to work is not necessarily good nor evil.
I'm still there. I'm thinking.
Yeah, no worries. I actually
appreciate
Scott,
that.
This is what I really appreciate about you.
Yeah.
The fact is, you've apologized at times when you have thought about things or went, you know what, I'm not sure. And that really strikes at the core of a lot of my experience when I was in the church. There was this idea that if you were not resolute, if you were not, absolutely sure about a thing, that it was kind of a failing. Not that it was said directly that way, but it was kind of looked down upon. But being able to do that opens yourself up to learning and growing. And that's what makes it so pleasant to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate that.
I think we should probably move on.
I don't know another way to be honest.
Well, we do have a couple of other calls, but Scott, I would love for you to call in and talk to you next time about this idea of sinful nature. And I don't want to give you a gotcha, so I kind of want to give you what I'm thinking here, okay? Okay. My view on sin is almost kind of like telling you that you're sick to sell you the cure. It's looking at human nature and vilifying several aspects of human nature so that you can be sold on, it's like breaking your leg to sell you a crutch, right? It's kind of taking things that are not good nor evil, right? Not moral nor immoral, just amoral things like being horny, and putting a negative spin on it, saying that's what's broken about you. Here's the cure. And it's something that I think is really, really, it sticks in my craw, man. And I would love to talk to you about it next time. Would you be up for that conversation?
I would absolutely be up for that. That sounds like a winner. There's nothing I'd like better than to sit down in a restaurant and just have a lot of time to go over this stuff.
Yeah. Hey, if you're ever in Austin, once all this kind of settles down, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I have no plans to be there in the near future, but who knows?
Well, we wouldn't want to be in Texas right now either, but
if you ever find yourself in Charlotte with a couple hours to burn,
honestly, we have quite a few people out in that area. That's quite possible. But in the meantime, Scott, enjoy your holiday, and thank you so much for calling in.
Yeah, you bet. You guys do the same. Always enjoy it.
Bye.
We do too. Take care.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are a lot of people in the chat who are just like, sinful nature. And I agreed, but at the same time, if we shifted the conversation that way, we would have railroaded him into a conversation that he didn't call in to have.
Right. It's interesting with callers who are so willing to kind of like, oh, okay, we can go there, or like, okay, we can talk about this, because you can't just go into the weeds and just get completely lost and end up talking about something completely different, which is fun for us, but probably less fun for everybody else.
Yeah.
So,
if it's not directed, then it may not be as useful of a tool for the people who are watching.
yeah. Also, just in case everybody didn't know, we are the only call-in show today that is currently taking callers. So if you have somebody who wants to call a show during the day today, have them call in, and we will go a little bit long if we get callers, because we're the only one doing this week.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that'd be
let's do it.
That said, for those of you who are thinking about calling in, this is a call-in show. There's a back and forth, talking at us, preaching to us, or wanting to share a 5-minute story about how you did a thing that was super cool on Facebook. This isn't the format for it. So please, please, please be kind to our call screeners and recognize the format.
All right.
Who do you want to talk to next?
Let's talk with...
Ooh, how about Asdruval in Guatemala?
Okay, sounds good.
Ooh, just because that ties really well into that last call we had.
Well, you have picked somebody I haven't typed up yet. Oh, I
That's
have.
okay.
Never mind. Go for it. All right.
Asdruval in Guatemala, you're live with Eric and V.
Hi, Eric. Hi, V. It's a pleasure to be with you here.
Thank you so
Hello.
much for calling in. You have a really interesting topic. Would you like to present it? What did you want to call it? What did you want to talk about today?
Well, I was thinking, since the first time I saw your show, I was like, I really want to talk to them because you present really good points. I'm currently an agnostic. I wouldn't call myself an atheist because I am not saying God does not exist. I just don't know and honestly don't care.
We actually feel the same way.
Oh, well, I think we're on the same page.
Yeah, I think it might
So,
just be definitions, because the way that I define agnostic is that I don't have, it is the I don't know part, and other agnostics would say that it is impossible to know. But anyway, that's going far afield. What did you want to talk about? Sorry.
Yeah. Don't worry. Well, there is this idea, and when you were talking to the other guy previously, you were talking about like this sinful nature and this stuff. I'm gay, and I went through a very tough process of acceptance, like accepting myself, and because when I started acknowledging that I was homosexual, at the same time, I started going to church. So I think that was not the best combination of events. The thing is, at first I would feel normal. I mean, natural. I mean, I would see a guy or a kid because I was 13, and I would see a boy, and I would be like, oh, he's cute.
Yeah.
But then I started going to church. I honestly fell in love with the community in the church because the church I used to go to has this very strong sense of belonging. And I was like, okay, I like this community, I like these people, let's see if I can be myself here. Then I noticed I couldn't, so I went through 7 or 8 years of torture, like hating myself and feeling all right, I was born this way. Why? I don't know, but God, you can change me. So I went through a process of begging God. I remember myself when I was 12, I was begging and crying, literally on my knees next to my bed and saying, God, if you can turn me into a woman, maybe I can be not sinful. I mean, I can like men being a woman, so please turn me into a woman. And I was crying. I fell asleep crying, and in the morning, I was still a boy. So it was tough. Then, like 3 years ago, I asked, I didn't ask anyone because I was afraid, but I asked myself, and I wondered, why am I gay? And then I started researching, and I noticed, okay, this is natural. This is not something did to me or made me do or made me become. Now, why does God not like people being gay? So I started like researching, like because I used to love reading the Bible. So I was like, okay, I know the Bible, but there aren't clear verses like that talk about this topic.
Yeah.
So I would start researching and stuff, and I got to the conclusion that God has this thing of predestination, and that scared me a lot.
Yeah.
That
Hey,
scared me a lot, because then I realized, okay, if God created me this way, He knew I was going to be gay. He is condemned. He is going to condemn me to eternal damnation for something I did not choose, and
Yeah.
I am supposed to live in a constant fight against myself.
yeah. How can we help you on this? How can we? It
My
seems like we're
question is,
now.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, it's okay. What?
My question.
No, go on.
My question is, I am currently 96% sure that I'm who I am. But sometimes, I see people who are starting their journey, their deconstruction journey, or even myself. Sometimes I find myself like wondering, what if I'm wrong? What if all those crazy Bible prophecies are right, and I'm just part of that negative side of the prophecy where people are going to start abandoning faith, and So
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, how do I get rid of this thought?
Yeah.
Whew, that is.
What do you think?
Yeah.
There are so many different places where that comes into play in so many different ways
Yeah.
that I feel like we could probably do a whole hour just trying to give you different examples. V, do you have any that come to mind right away?
The biggest thing for me was learning about church history. It seems
Okay.
counterintuitive, right? There's a lot of very strong emotional feelings here. These very what if I'm wrong? And part of me wants to be like, you aren't. It's okay. Like, everyone has that 4% doubt, and that's healthy. That is good, and you're fine. But being practical and giving you an actual go-to thing to do, I would say start researching the history of Christianity, where it started, where it came from, what the church fathers have done to influence how we interpret the Bible, the kinds of texts that have been removed from the Bible. So the concern about it maybe all being true and me being the wrong one was mostly alleviated by realizing that 98% of what I thought was just the Word of God was actually some crusty old dude back in the Middle Ages deciding how to interpret something and getting everybody else to agree. And now that's just how we interpret the thing. So once you realize how many gaps and how many people's hands have been on this doctrine, on this religion, and how different individuals who you've never even heard of before have changed it and shaped it in ways that impact us today, vastly undercuts that idea that there is a way to be, and somehow most people have got it and we haven't, and we're going to be punished for it. So that's what helped me the most, and it was also just very entertaining and very fun to do. So I would definitely recommend just diving into all of this.
Yeah, and the other two pieces that I would kind of throw in are kind of from a different direction. One of them is, I mean, yes, I agree. If you want to know, research as much as you can. Also, work on that toolkit. What do you do when you're not sure? Right? What, should I get in the car and drive to the store? What if I get hit by another car? What if I get struck by lightning if I go outside? How do I make those choices? How do I run the odds in my head and decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do versus that? What really dramatically changed things was realizing that hundreds of thousands of other religions and faith traditions are also believed and have been believed by other people. And so what if I'm wrong and one of those people are right? It dramatically reduced the likelihood in my head of, just the one that I was worried about. And I realized that I had weighted that one a lot more than the others. And so kind of putting that in perspective helped. And the last piece that I think that I would give you is learn how to be wrong. Right? When you find out that you're wrong, there are a lot of ways to react. You could say, no, that's not the case, and dig your feet in and be angry about it. You could say, wow, I didn't know that. Let's look into it. Or if you just find out you're wrong, what do you do? And I think that one of the best habits to give yourself is, as you're exploring, as you're learning, when your gut kind of drops out and you get that feeling like, oh gosh, I have no idea. That's what eureka feels like. That's what discovery feels like. That's what a big growth and change in your life feels like. It feels like a in the pit of your stomach, oh my gosh, I didn't know, or oh my gosh, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And instead of being afraid of it, try your best to embrace it, because you are not that feeling. That feeling is your opportunity to go, I'm going to be better for this.
Wow. Thank you so much. I really appreciate those words, and you're totally right. I mean, I'm not that concerned about myself, but about people who I know that are going through this, are just starting this journey. And I think the hardest or the toughest part of the process is acknowledging first, when you know you're wrong, or that you might be wrong, you start doubting and saying, well, my life, this is what my life used to be. I mean, at least in my case, my life would totally revolve around my faith. That was my whole identity. So starting to unlearn certain things, certain habits, certain thought processes, I don't know, those cognitive consequences and emotional and psychological consequences that these harmful beliefs give you, is really hard. I mean, I would say in my case, Asdruval, what I need to do is to start going to therapy. I mean, this would be that would be like a good closure to my process.
It is
my personal journey.
And there's a lot of growth that you can do. And I think after this, we're probably going to move over to the next caller. But I think what you can do is those what you're going to confront, all of those habits, you don't need to get rid of them as much as recognize them, turn them into red flags on the highway of your mind as you're traveling through your life. If you see that you're, that there's an off ramp, and oh my gosh, that is this kind of thinking, you can recognize it for what it is. But you've had these chances in your life to find all of these different things that you can take with you moving forward, so you don't fall into them again.
Sure.
Yeah, but Asdruval,
I totally get it. Thank you so much for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for calling in, and we wish you luck. We've both been where you are. We're still kind of there.
Yeah.
And we see you. You're not alone.
No, you're not.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.
Yeah. I don't know. There's the protect instinct that comes up, where it's like, tell me who's telling you these things and I will go punch them.
Right.
But really, for me, it's a lot less glamorous, I guess. It's just, hey, look just a little bit deeper, and it becomes so clear that things start falling apart, and you're like, oh, okay, I am not facing off against this impenetrable wall.
Fortress.
It's actually just it's a house of cards. All right.
Yeah. All right. Where do we want to go next? I picked the last two people.
Okay. Let's go to David.
All right. David in California. You're live with Eric and V. David, are you there?
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
What did you want to talk about today?
Doing?
We're doing well.
Doing good. How are you?
Basically, I've had an experience that was very weird, and I couldn't explain it, so I didn't. But about a year later, I told some people about it, and they acted as if they knew what happened to me. And I was just wondering, how come people do that? I mean, you don't know what's happened inside of somebody else's head.
Ooh, I actually honestly think that there are a couple of places where atheists and skeptics, myself included, really screw up in this conversation. And I think you may have hit it. on the head. So
Can I say something?
Yeah, of course.
I've never had any religious indoctrination at all.
That's totally understood. It's more the skeptic part, right? So when it comes to applying skepticism, we take a look at how Descartes kind of tried to break everything down all the way down to I think, therefore I am. Right? Are you aware of that whole dialogue?
Yes.
Okay. What he tried to do is he went, here is this phenomenon. What is every possible explanation I can think of so that I can kind of rattle them off and go through them to figure out what was most likely?
Yeah. Can I tell you about the experience?
Well, really quick, I think I'm going to lose my train of thought if I don't finish this really quick.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I find that when people share unexplainable experiences with me, my first thought is to do what Descartes did. And could it have been this? Could it have been that? What about this? Here's this. Here's this. You know, what's the likelihood of this? And as I list them out, I've often had people look at me and give the same response that you just gave at the beginning of this call, which is, why do you think you know what happened to me? And I think that comes from me not being able to clearly say, here are all the explanations I could think of. Did you go through them as well? And if you didn't, why not? Does that make sense?
Well, I had the experience, and I couldn't explain it. And because of my psychedelic use in the 60s and 70s, when something weird happens to me, I just file it away in a little, wow, that's weird place in my brain. I don't really, I don't examine it. It's just something that happened.
Okay. So,
but when I told others about a year later, they thought that they knew what happened.
Okay. Did you consider it, or did it feel offensive to you? What happened because of that? Maybe a little bit more information.
Nobody had any idea what it was. Nobody. Because it was my experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we need to be able to say it was something. Right. Oh, I know why that happened, because that gives us closure. That makes us feel secure. And that happens across the board. And I think that if more people approached things the way you did, David, and just said, hey, that was a really weird experience, I'm not going to deny that I had it, right? I'm going to be honest with myself about what I experienced. But I'm also not going to jump in and say, well, it must be this thing. Or
it must be aliens. Right. It must be supernatural.
I think your instinct is spot on there.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Do you want to hear about the experience really short?
If it's short and we can engage with it, then yes. If not, then we might need to point you to a format where you're able to kind of share it in the way you want to.
I would I would ask real fast, David, I don't want us to fall into that same pattern where you give us your experience and then we say, well, have you thought about it? Might be this or might be that. So what are you hoping to get out of this by sharing your experience with us?
I haven't shared it with anybody now again for about 7 years, and I love you guys. So I thought maybe I could share it. But I think where we're going is much better than like having a specific experience. I think talking about everything around it is better.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, definitely. Also, thank you for wanting to share that with us. I want to be that type of person that people can come to with experiences. Yeah,
and I'm doing my best to try and point out the fact that if somebody brings a wild experience to me, my very first thing that I think of is fixer mode, kind of, could it have been this? What about this? And that's often not solicited, but it's the first thing I do. But we're kind of getting far afield. I say it says in the comments, why do people think they know what others are thinking and feeling with unexplainable experiences? I don't know.
That's pretty concise.
Yeah, our call screeners are amazing. Did we address that, or did we kind of circle around it? How can we help?
No, you did good. I just really wanted to talk to you guys because I love you.
Aww.
Well, we're glad you called in.
I watched you on Talk Heathen when I found it, and then you were gone. And so I put V and Eric in the search. And
Yay!
Skeptic Generation come up. I don't go anywhere else now.
Aw.
Why should I? You guys are perfect.
Oh,
Well, we try to be as best as we can.
And we
Well, you're
hold
both-
ourselves accountable.
Yeah, you're both beautiful. You both have excellent hair, Eric. Your hair is fine.
Hey, somebody said in the comments that my head looks like a diamond, and now I can't unsee it because it is absolutely true.
Yeah, I get it.
But David, you're going to make me blush so much. I don't know what. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
But that's isn't that what this is about? Is to make you blush after you've.
This is the whole goal of the show. We're winning right now.
Okay.
I just wanted to share with you guys.
Thank you for sharing, David.
Thank you,
Keep
David.
keep on with that mindset. If you have an experience, accept that you had it, think about it as much as you need to, and then maybe say, I don't know what that was, and move on. That's a really good way to
that's
do
just
things.
it.
Yeah.
And for
I
those,
don't know, but other people said they did.
Yeah.
yeah, that's not nice.
It's always a red flag.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
You guys are great. This is wonderful, and it's a beautiful day outside here, and I hope it's a beautiful day for you too.
Oh, it's going to be raining later, and that is beautiful for me. David, we got to head over to
good.
the next call.
I think weather is beautiful.
We do too. Take care.
All right.
Okay, guys.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, if you have an unexplained experience, you have no idea, just ask yourself, what would David do? David would put that in the bin of, that was weird, but not necessarily try and categorize it as something that he knew, but would say, I don't know about that.
I like this, the comment. From now on, we rate callers on how much they make Eric blush.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I like it. Yeah, I think that there's a takeaway here as well, which is when someone comes to you to share an experience or, anything, the instinct for a lot of us might be to try and help them explain it. Or the instinct might be, because of watching shows like this, to debunk it. Like there are a bunch of things that we assume the other person wants from us. And sometimes it might just be to share a weird experience. So always kind of ask what the other person is looking for when coming to you with this kind of thing. Because the hope is that you are a person who they will just want to come back to and share things with. And then you can explore together if that's what you guys want to do.
P, that was a really, really good call. I feel like you preempted a tangent from happening in a really, really effective way. I want to do that more in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to... Oh, Salvatore called in.
Want to talk with Salvatore?
Yeah, I do. Salvatore in Louisiana. You're live with Eric and V.
Hey guys, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. What did you want to talk about today?
I kind of wanted to serve y'all up a softball question on the day after Christmas and get your... but you already dealt... Oh, so I can actually speak to a little bit about if there is evil or sin in heaven, per what I learned when I was in Catholic seminary. If y'all want to take some time for that, or just get straight to the question.
So I've interacted with multiple different views on that in particular, and I found that it really just depends on the person you're talking to, because even if I was talking to a Catholic and I said, your doctrine says this, and they go, well, I don't believe that, it's like, oh, okay, well, we're boned. But I appreciate it. Well, it said you wanted to ask about UU churches.
Yeah. Well, so I'm a member of. I found that after I deconverted, that the Unitarian Church became a new home for me, and I'm just wondering if y'all had an opinion on atheists finding a home in the Unitarian Church or Unitarian Universalist Church, or if y'all had, if y'all have an official stance on it. I know other shows have talked about it, but don't recall y'all talking about it, so I figured I'd give you a chance to talk about that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, V and I haven't really talked a whole lot about UU churches, so we may not have the same view. So I can definitely say that the show has not given a stated view on UU churches.
Yeah. I have not been to one, so I don't want to make any kind of broad claim. But I do think that the idea has its place. I absolutely think that there are people who benefit from church in some way, shape, or form, whether that's the community or whether that's the ritual or just the being around people every week. If you're not a social person or don't have access to a community elsewhere, it can be really wonderful to build that kind of a community. I am on the fence about whether or not, calling it a church is the most helpful thing, because my hope is that we're able to move away from giving over those beautiful, necessary components of humanity to a religious mindset or words. But I mean, that's my only quibble with it, is the granting of the word church, I suppose. But yeah, I'm all for it, and I would honestly like to visit a Unitarian church at some point and just see what was going on.
Yeah, in my experience, it totally depends on the UU church. It can vary from place to place.
Absolutely.
There are some places that really skew heavy into some woo-woo stuff. But then again, it's kind of, it really depends on what you want to get out of it. If you want to go find that community, like V said, if you want to find people who are not going to shove their religion down your throat, that can be a great place. Personally, I'm kind of thorny a little bit when it comes to talking about religion, and I want to talk about it. I want to talk about counter apologetics. I want to talk about being an atheist and what that experience is like. And I've found that not everyone at UU wants to talk about that. And so it kind of worked out for me more to find atheist groups. But then again, it just depends on what you want to get out of it. Like B said, it could be a great experience. It just depends on what you want, what you want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely the community aspect. And it's funny, I found the ritual I needed in paganism. But no, I've heard in some of the discussions in the wider atheist sphere about how an acknowledgement that quote unquote we don't do community well, and that's a place I've been able to find it. So again, I love you guys. I hope I don't make Eric blush, but when I was in seminary, when I was in seminary, I found that you put 60 guys together in the same place who can't have sex, it gets really competitive, right? Well, that was one of the offshoots we had. And one of the things was the smarter seminarians I would see would use that to belittle and other people and make them, the intellect became a weapon, right?
Oh yeah.
And what I've seen with you guys when you're dealing with people who are, as you like to say, honest interlocutors, if they're not honest, you eviscerate them. But the people who are honest, you guys handled them with a gentleness that I really, really appreciate. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you as well, and Happy Yule.
Yeah. Take care. I'm glad for that, because that's what we want to see. We're demonstrating the kind of conversations that we want to see had. Right.
And there are going to be the, double finger waving moments where we're like, you're banned. I can't stand you, but for the most part, these are the conversations we want to be having. So we're happy we get to. I also do want to say, I'm never going to tell someone not to go to a place or participate in an event because of the name of the thing, right? So, if somebody comes to me and they're like, I'm an atheist, I agree with you, I go to a Universalist church. Cool. If I go to the church and they're like, and now we're going to all drink this Kool-Aid and ascend to meet the aliens, then I'm going to be like, oh, maybe maybe find another church. But there's room for nuance here.
There is.
Where you can be supportive of somebody's journey, even if it's not exactly yours. And as long as you're able to agree on what to look for in a good space,
Yeah.
then there's no argument for me.
No, and it makes me think of other analogs. I played World of Warcraft for a long time. I got into Magic the Gathering. I didn't need the people I was playing with to have the same religious views as me. It just was what I wanted to get out of that interaction.
Yeah.
So, all right.
I think we should get to Andrew.
Ooh, yeah. Let's talk to Andrew in Pennsylvania. We're getting a lot of Pennsylvania callers, aren't we?
Yeah, it's almost like they know where I'm from. But Andrew, we're going to bring you on. Please frame this in terms of a question. I do want to make sure that we're getting a dialogue going back and forth here. Andrew, can you hear us?
Yeah, I heard you loud and clear.
Beautiful.
That statement was just like what we came up with the call screener.
Perfect.
Well, what I wanted to talk about was the idea of moral structures, secular moral structures.
Okay.
That we see commonly.
Mm-hmm.
I know I call myself a humanist, and so you folks. And, well, maybe to help guide this, how would you define that?
Humanism. Ooh. I'm kind of stretching for a definition. Give me a minute. V, do you have one off the top of your head?
I would say that humanism, in the way that I've heard it discussed by anybody who calls themselves a humanist, is prioritizing human well-being above other concerns around morality.
And reducing suffering.
Right. So the concept of looking at humanity as a whole and saying, what actions can I take or not take to reduce suffering and increase well-being for humans?
All right.
And then
go
ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that included in that, when it comes to increasing well-being, that often comes along with, equity, charity, fairness. It comes with, opportunity, and with, just this entire suite of things that we grant when we're trying to increase that well-being. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, if I'm reading this right, and I think we're on the same page, we would say that three of us believe that that if we all agree that human well-being or human happiness is like something we should care about, then there are certain actions that we objectively should do to further that along.
No. No, I think that valuing a thing and saying that I must do X, like, example, I haven't gone out and done charity work in the last few months. But does that mean that I'm not a humanist? You know what I mean? Like holding a view versus an ought for action doesn't necessarily always equate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point to point out. I wasn't necessarily saying in terms of ought statements, but more in terms of what has moral value.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it would even be safer to say that there are things we should not do as humanists, right? We should not violate other people's autonomy. We should not endorse, wide-scale harm of a population based on an attribute of that group, right? So there are definitely things that I think humanists could agree on in terms of action. I'm curious where this is going.
Yeah.
Well, what I was saying what I was priming this for is that, we're humanists, but I believe there's other secular moral structures that exist out there too.
Sure.
I don't think they're necessarily formalized
Well,
per se.
okay.
Well, here's one that I kind of feel is popular. It's a moral structure that's not based on necessarily human well-being, but based upon liberty, based upon having the ability to do something, and not necessarily the consideration of human well-being. It's not necessarily outside of that, but it kind of puts it on a higher level.
Yeah, I think that is one structure that does not necessarily have to do with a god. Another one is the rules of acquisition, right? That is a secular moral structure that has nothing to do with humanism and nothing to do with a god. It's just the way that you operate within the world outside of kind of a religious oversight.
And then you got veganism that, takes those views of humanism and expands them to non-human creatures.
Yeah.
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 Well, I was just wanted to talk about some of those things.
Oh, okay.
Is there any other ones that you know about that
Dude,
that seem to kind of be floating around?
Dude, really pick your fan fiction. So if you want to look at Trek, you can look at the view of Klingons and how
he watches Voyager and Next Gen and starts calling it Trek. I have one. I'm sorry, continue.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to know.
No, it is a good world to kind of talk about this in, because the assumption is that Starfleet and the Federation is humanist, or whatever the equivalent would be, including aliens. But there are all of those competing worldviews. None of them, except maybe Bajorans, have a specific religious component to them. At least none of the major alien groups. But the concept is those constantly coming into conflict and talking it out and saying, okay, who has a better reason for holding the beliefs that they do? What are the consequences of holding your beliefs versus mine? And it's fascinating. And there are definitely secular people who are not humanists, and humanists who are not secular people.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what's next? Where are we going?
Or was that it?
I think it's interesting that you brought up Star Trek, because it does kind of demonstrate how in that kind of world where we all have valid moral structures that differentiate from each other, how we can actually, in a dialogue, we can move forward and kind of come to a synthesis, a coming together on ideas and producing better ones after.
Yeah. And if you want to just explore other secular structures that could just be interesting, look up true neutral alignment in Dungeons and Dragons, because the most variety I've seen when it comes to various, wild moral structures have come from true neutral characters. And that can be a really fun rabbit hole to go down if you want to.
Okay.
Andrew, thank you for calling in. This was nice.
Yeah, it was cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay.
Interesting. That was a fascinating theory of conversation. I like that direction of things. And I saw a couple people in the chat, I'm not going to call you out, saying that humanism is a dedication to logic and rationality or evidence-based reasoning. And I'm like, no, it's not. If you are equating humanism with skepticism or atheism, inherently, by definition, you're wrong.
Yeah, there are lots of religious humanists.
Yeah, absolutely. It has nothing to do with epistemology. It has everything to do with ethics, right? And you can have people who are both skeptics and humanists. Hi, we're right here. But you can also have people who are humanists who believe in a god. You can have people who are skeptics who are definitely not humanists.
And I mean,
Yeah, the Aflac guy. Who? The guy who sells Aflac now?
the duck.
David Silverman. You know, the Aflac dude.
Oh, the Affleck guy.
Yeah. Like, that's a good example of somebody who's an atheist but not a humanist.
Sure.
So yeah, they're all configurations of that.
We're ready for the comments. Just remember
Oh my
that
gosh.
V at what? Oh my gosh.
Dante just
donated
stunned us.
with the largest super chat that we've gotten on the show.
Oh my
Merry
goodness.
Christmas.
Dante, we will give you a massive shout
I
out.
don't know what to do.
But
I'm
throwing
kinda
us off our
shocked.
game. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We should. I know that we put everything towards the show, but maybe we should do like a nice Christmas dinner. I like that. Okay. Anyway,
Aw.
sorry.
Okay.
Let's move on. We've got other callers.
I think we should just do the one more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're coming up on time, and I do want to make sure we get to all of these because we have super chats that are quite.
We do.
lengthy
We've been
this
getting
time.
like so much love in the chat, like the holiday spirit. I'm just feeling really good. Okay, yeah.
Yay.
If we're gonna take one more call, let's take Tabitha in New York.
Sounds good.
Tabitha, you're live with Eric and V.
Good afternoon, Eric and V. How are you?
Hi.
Hello.
We're doing really well. Kind of shocked and warm fuzzies and all of that good stuff. How about what do you want to
Hey.
talk about today?
You can't put a price tag on that. No, I just wanted to share a little something that's become a pet peeve recently for me. That
Okay.
a couple weeks ago, I was stopping at the grocery store after work, which it's always I hate doing that after work because I'm already tired and I'd rather just go straight home. But my dogs had to eat, so I went shopping. I was minding my own business, and I'm picking out like ground turkey, and some woman next to me all of a sudden, she just totally caught me off guard right out of the blue. Oh, hi, how are you? My name is so and so. I'm here with my friend. We're from this church, and
Oh, no.
we have this Bible study group, and we'd love to invite you. And I'm just, I'm like in search mode. So I'm like, oh no, thank you, no, thank you.
Yeah.
And then she comes back again, and she keeps talking. It's by the third time of inviting me, I'm like, excuse me, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any of that stuff, and but thank you. Well, you can just come out and listen to the Bible history, and I mean, it took about like 5 or 6 polite no thank yous, to finally, get away from this person.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, I went and I finished my shopping, and on the way home, I started to get really annoyed with myself for being as gracious as I was.
I've been there, yeah.
It's just like, it's one thing if you want to spread the word and, do the whole,
Evangelism
you want
thing.
people to, yes,
Yeah.
set up a booth outside. And
Right.
the people who are interested can come and approach you. But the more I thought about it, the more I felt very intruded upon.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you're unsuspecting. It's like they catch you off guard, and you kind of like don't know what to say. And before you really get a chance to realize what's going on and how intrusive and how violative that kind of thing is, you're already out of the store and you're home or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just felt really, really, really annoyed after that. And I'm like, should I have said something? Why was I so gracious? I just should have let this person know in certain terms that, you know what, I'm here shopping.
Yeah.
You really shouldn't be doing this kind of thing.
The most infuriating part about evangelists to me is that they hijack your polite response, right? They rely on you being polite to them to get to you. And it's something that is so disconcerting, because if somebody is not being outright, aggressive, then the instinct as like just a person in society is to be like, okay, let me talk with this person, or at least, be gentle in how I respond. And that's good like 99% of the time, but when it's being used against you, and then you have to deal with that icky feeling later of like, I feel like duped almost.
Yeah.
It's rough. It's really unfair, and it's not polite on their end.
No.
Honestly, the most impactful thing that I have found to work is to just tell them that. Be like, this is not polite. You are not being polite right now. This is very impolite.
Yeah. Or if they push, just be like, excuse me, that was very rude of you. Trust me, they're going to walk away with a lot more of that yucky feeling than you are, because they don't want to be called rude. And honestly, what kind of pushed me into that particular feeling comfortable with doing that is knowing religious people who did believe, who felt that their religious views and their religious practices were intensely private. And
absolutely.
Yeah, and I brought up an example a long time ago, actually. It was, I don't remember if it was on a show or how I came across the story, but there was someone who was getting preached to at work by their boss, and their boss wouldn't let it go. And they finally pulled their boss aside and said, do you want to talk about how I fucked my wife too? And the boss was like, what are you, he said, this is my religious views, and the way that I practice my religion is entirely private to me. And I need you to back off. And
that's definitely a good way to look at it. It is that private, and they just don't see it that way.
And the second they did that, the boss just, number one, assumed that this is a very religious person, and number two, backed the fuck off. It was they were an atheist, but that assumption helped them, and they didn't need to get bothered by that boss anymore. It was just, this is rude. Not everyone, even religious people, not everyone accepts this kind of evangelism. You need to back off.
And it was even equally, interesting, the dynamic, because these were people these women were definitely younger than me, considerably younger than me, and it was like, normally with people that are younger than me, I'm definitely more in charge of my environment. So that just goes to show how caught off guard I was, because normally it would be like, excuse me, I give you kind of like the finger shaking thing, but it just so caught me off guard, and I felt like I was too gracious, and sometimes you just need to hear that, it's okay for you to be firm, and you can still be polite, but you can be firm, and sometimes people are going to be uncomfortable, but you have to, respect boundaries.
And that does not make you rude.
Yeah.
Setting firm boundaries that are reasonable is okay. It does not make you rude. Don't do what I did when V and I went to Pennsylvania.
Oh.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah. We were
walking through my hometown, because I was like, hey, I grew up here. I want to show you my hometown. We're walking through. We're almost done for the day. We're walking back to our car.
And this old lady kind of walks up to us and just stops us and
it's like, do you young people want to pray with me?
Yeah. Would you like to pray? I'd like to pray with you.
It's very clear. Like, we very clearly are not from this small town. At the time, I had like completely shaved my head. Like, there were definitely things that probably, were little flags to her that were like, these are people who need me.
Yeah.
And Eric.
Yeah, I just turned to her and I just started laughing at her in her face. I was just like, and it was incredibly rude. That is rude. Don't do what Eric did.
It was not.
I mean, deep belly laughs. It was the funniest thing. And the look on her face was, don't do that. That is rude. Don't be rude.
But that kind of approach is actually, that kind of, it's so, it almost borders on cartoonish sometimes.
Well,
so how wrapped up these people are.
True.
In this.
And And honestly, if they get just that little second of like, oh, not everybody's exactly like me. Oh my gosh, maybe I'm operating in a bubble and I'm being an absolute annoyance to people around me. Oh, well, geez, holy crap.
Yeah.
But
I think
sometimes that's not comfortable on any end.
no, exactly, exactly. Here's the thing, Tabitha, and then we'll let you go.
Sure.
They are relying on you to uphold the social contract, so they don't have to. They are
That's
relying
a really great
on
way
you.
to put it.
Yeah, they're saying, okay, we're going to break the rules, but we're going to rely on Tabitha to not break the rules so that we can do what we want to do. And all you need to do is say you're breaking the rules, and they will go away.
Yeah, it's very manipulative when you phrase it like that. They take advantage of your kindness, and your respect for other people, and basically just exploit it and do what they want to do. That's a good way to put it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for calling in. We hope you have a lovely rest of your holiday and a happy New Year.
Absolutely.
Same to both of you.
Bye.
Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Oh, Tabitha was sweet.
Tabitha is very sweet. I like Tabitha. I don't know Tabitha, but I like Tabitha.
Me too. We've got super chats, and I am just.
We are so floored, you guys. Thank you.
I'm dumbstruck. I'm just. So let's go through. Insomnia Doodles sent us $5 and says, I called my grandma yesterday to wish her a Merry Christmas, and we wound up talking more about Stephen King than Jesus. Progress? Sonny, that is kind of the relationship that I wound up developing with one of my aunts, and it's
with Stephen King too, right?
With Stephen King too, exactly.
It's a thing. It brings people together.
Right.
Amit, hi Amit, thank you. $10. Thank you so much. He says, recently a Christian cousin told me that he doesn't believe in human evolution. Any tips on how I can help him become a Christian who accepts evolution without stepping outside of my area of expertise?
Personally, I think my first step would be to find Christians who argue against young earth creationism. They exist. Maybe seeing that and engaging with that and not having to, go directly to atheists who fight young earth creationism can make it a little bit more palatable, potentially. But just don't take responsibility entirely upon yourself. Recognize that you're making an effort and that's good, or it can help, but you don't need to own the consequences of that, because you don't want to set yourself up for failure. Yeah,
and also kudos for understanding that there is a difference there. I know a lot of people jump straight to how do I deconvert them, but if you just get them to a place where they maintain their faith but are more scientifically literate, that's also great and a really worthwhile goal.
It is.
I always recommend Vice Rhino for this kind of thing. Vice very specifically talks about young earth creationism. 90% of what he does is that, and I have not met anybody more engaging or well versed to talk to other lay people about it.
That's fair. Vice is an absolute sweetheart. Hope you're having a good holiday, Vice. Anyway, sorry. Muldred sent us $10.42 and says, want to screw up a peace, love, and groovy neo-socialist reform Jewish sect? Better call Saul.
I have not seen it, so I don't know what that means.
No, but I really, we need to watch it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You saw the first half of Breaking Bad. I saw the second half. So between us, we've seen Breaking Bad. We just need to get on the rest of it.
Yeah, true enough.
Jacob Moreno sent us $50. Thank you, Jacob. Happy holidays, V and Eric. I would like your opinions on a statement I use on believers who are championing biblical morality. All faith-based moral systems are inherently unethical since they deny informed consent. Thoughts? Thanks in advance.
Anytime that I hear all when it comes to one of these statements, it kind of shoots up a red flag that I need to investigate. So let me read that again. All faith-based moral systems are inherently unethical since they deny informed consent. I think there are a couple pieces there. First is I would definitely adjust the language on that, because when you say they're inherently unethical, you're assuming that informed consent is part of all ethics. And while I would agree that any ethics that I would subscribe to involve informed consent, you might be taking it a step too far.
I feel like I agree with your statement, but in order to get somebody who is not on the same page with you yet there, you would first have to demonstrate that informed consent is a good metric by which to measure others' morality. So I think as long as that's the beginning of the conversation and you continue on to have that part of it, that's a really good kind of springboard into something important.
Yeah, it could be fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Very, very cool.
My turn or yours?
Your turn.
My turn. Salvatore. Hey, Salvatore. Sent $5 and says, Eric, you play Magic. What's your favorite color or color combination? Oh my gosh. Well.
We're going to be here all day.
Yeah. I have made decks of every color. I think that if I just want to goof around, I go, is it? But I have no problem with, I've got decks of every color. It's fun. They're great color combinations. Red, blue for the most part, but I don't mind red, black, straight blue.
I like green and white, and that
white.
probably says everything you need to know about me.
Tokens and big things.
Sarah Dye also sent us $50. Thank you, Sarah, so much. The fact that you are live today is my holiday present.
Yay!
Yay!
Happy holidays.
Thank you for great conversations. You two help me do better.
That's awesome, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah, so much.
Dante sent us our biggest super chat, I think, in the history of the show.
I think so. We're ending on a high note, for sure.
Yeah, for our season 1 finale.
Season 1 finale.
Sent us $500. Says, V and Eric, you're both very good at what you do. You've already come so far. You must be so proud. Looking back, you had to start all over and build Skeptic Generation from the ground up. Now you have a steady and accelerating fan base, and everyone knows you're going to conquer it. Cheers to the end of season 1. You're a smash success.
Oh, Dante, I'm going to cry on air. That's so sweet. Thank you.
It really is. Thank you.
It's honestly because of people like you who showed up right at the beginning and were like, how can I help? That is the reason that we're starting season 2 next week.
Yeah, I mean, when we started, we needed equipment. We needed everything.
We had literally maybe like one mic. And that was like
no mics. We had to borrow mics from
Oh, that's
Thomas.
right. We were borrowing them.
We had my computer that I'd built for editing, so that was good. And I owned this camera, but we needed lights. We needed all of the software.
We needed the what's it called? The SM7?
The
SM7 are these.
The mixer, the XR. We wound up needing, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And we still have a lot to go. And people don't realize that just the programs that we're using to get things going out at the quality we are is thousands of dollars. But
That's
it's because of you
people like
guys.
Dante.
Yeah.
Nathan Schultz sent us $20. Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you, Nathan.
Says, you both answered last time, so I doubled my super chat. You've both stated Janeway is your preferred captain. What are your views on the Tuvix problem? Would you want her to murder to get you home?
Yes.
I think that the Tuvix problem would still be a problem if she allowed Tuvix to exist. It would just have been switched around. How dare she take away the lives of both Tuvok and Neelix?
Yeah.
I think that it's a beautiful episode because it has lasted for, this is 20, 30 years now. People are still like, but this episode, which is clearly a mark of success. But I think that focusing on the Tuvix thing, if you're not going to focus on, say, Cisco, eco-terrorizing and bombing an entire planet to make it uninhabitable, like every single Star Trek captain has done at least one Tuvix in their career.
Yeah, but yeah, I agree with you. There's no right answer to it.
No.
And yes, murder to get me home, please. Holly sent us $20 in Super Chat, says, just because y'all are awesome.
Aw, thank you. Sarah Dye sent another 20 with just thank you. Thank you, Sarah.
Caleb sent $5 and says, congrats on season 1. Love the show and am simultaneously listening to season 1 and 2 of Talk Heathen. Here's to season 2. I am so sorry. I feel like I grew a lot. I have a lot more to grow, but I definitely took me a long time to find my legs and find who I am and the kind of person I want to be. And so, yeah, good luck. And there's some good calls there.
Yeah, that's how I got into all this. I was watching seasons 1 and 2 of Talk Heathen. Moldred sent another 5. I meant Saul of Tarsus.
Oh, got it.
We didn't get the pun. Sorry.
That makes much more sense.
Makes more sense.
Okay, Lucas Black sent $10 and says, I understand hesitance at going into the weeds, but this is one of the few shows that allows for such things. It's one of the reasons I love it. I doubt I'm alone.
Aw.
Lucas, thank you. And we have an absolute blast, and we're glad that you're here to join us. It's been an amazing adventure. The end of season 1. We got another
one.
People aren't letting us go. Josh Klein.
John Klein.
John.
$5, thank you. Can't wait for season 2. More Star Trek, please. There are things in the works right now, you guys. Very preliminary. Can't say anything yet.
But we're really excited about.
But there will be more Star Trek.
Oh, yes.
We promise.
Oh, yes. Okay. V, it has been an amazing season 1.
It really has been. Can we show them what we were working on right before the show?
that
As like a teaser?
Frantically trying to put together at the very last minute.
Can we give the teaser for what it will eventually be used for?
Can we tell them what it is first?
Yeah.
Okay, so didn't know if people were going to call in. It's the holidays. People are out on vacation, this and that. And so we thought, we've got some really good topics that we could talk to each other about. Mm-hmm. And people tend to like when we argue with each other. And so in about, 15 minutes, I threw this together. And it's terrible. I don't even know if the audio is right. So be careful with your audio. Let's hold on. I want to hear it too.
Okay.
So I've got to click the monitor here.
So this is not obviously going to be used today, but it will be used in a more spiffed up fashion during our occasional midweek live streams. Oh my.
It's fun. Just doing editing and getting better at editing, whipping something silly together has been good. But we're excited.
We're going to be doing some live streams where we go head to head on different philosophical or ethical or whatever concepts and just argue about it. We might have a call-in line so that people can call in and tell us who they agree with or who's very wrong. So we're going to be playing around with some stuff next year.
Yeah. That said, thank you so much, V. I could not imagine anyone else that I would want to do this with. It is an absolute pleasure, and I'm so grateful to have you here doing this with me.
Come here.
I love you. Until next time.
We'll see you next season.